Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
A terrorist bomb killed one and injured more than 100 at the Atlanta Summer Olympics. A series of deadly bombings aimed at seemingly unrelated targets soon followed. Authorities now believe a single man was behind each of these brutal attacks, and they need your help to bring him to justice. A young couple's long-anticipated dream of owning their own home tragically unravels when their new next-door neighbor allegedly turns out to be a violent racist. In the cases of Jessica Constant and Albert Wong, looks can truly be deceiving. They may appear to be typical young people, but they are anything but typical. Jessica and Albert, you see, are geniuses, and their astonishing gifts make for a mesmerizing mystery of the mind. When her daughter Molly disappeared from the local pond, Maggie Bish was paralyzed by grief. But now she will stop at nothing to find out what happened to Molly. In fact, she may even hold the key to solving the crime. The day before Molly disappeared, Maggie believes she saw the man who abducted her daughter. Join us for these stories and more on Unsolved Mysteries. Centennial Park, Atlanta, during a 1996 Summer Olympics. 6 months later, at daybreak, a clinic in suburban Atlanta. The Other Side Lounge, a midtown Atlanta gay and lesbian nightclub, 1 month later. 3 seemingly unrelated bombings that authorities believe have a common link. Could the same man be behind each terrorist attack? Millions of people around the world were shaken by the Olympic Park bombing. Security guard Richard Jewell, who was an early suspect, was cleared of any wrongdoing. And the person responsible for planning what the FBI called one of the largest pipe bombs in U.S. history has yet to be caught. For those in Centennial Park that fateful night, their lives were changed forever. Fallon Stubbs and her mother, Alice Hawthorne, were visiting from Albany, Georgia. The last-minute trip was a 14th birthday gift for Fallon.
We were enjoying the moment, enjoying the people. It was an experience like no other. And, you know, to be in that kind of surroundings, it was a beautiful thing.
Just before 1:20 a.m., Fallon and her mother paused to take a photograph, a memento of a wonderful night.
1, 2, 3.
The massive explosion knocked Fallon and her mother to the ground.
After the explosion, it was chaos. You never forget that moment afterwards, and I ran towards anybody who could help.
Hold on. I need to calm down. Here.
I probably got about 15 feet away from my mother, and they was like, lay down. And I was like, my mother, somebody's gotta help my mother.
44-year-old Alice Hawthorne had died instantly from injuries sustained in the attack. Although hundreds were injured, she was the only person killed by the bomb planted at Centennial Park. A task force of federal and state investigators was quickly assembled to apprehend the terrorist behind the vicious attack. Over the next 7 months, Atlanta was subjected to 2 more bombings, but an even more disturbing trend had developed. bomber was now planting a secondary device, apparently designed to harm police and rescue personnel who responded to victims of the first bomb. Adding to the frustrations of police, investigations did not indicate a specific suspect.
We were building a good prosecutable court case based upon the forensic evidence we had where we could tie the bombs together, but we still didn't know the identity of the bomber. We didn't know who he was.
FBI and ATF technicians meticulously reconstructed the devices and found forensic links between all three bombings. In the wake of the third incident, authorities received letters from the so-called Army of God claiming responsibility for the last two bombings, attacks on a family planning an abortion clinic and on a gay and lesbian nightclub.
In the letters, he got into the components of the bomb, which had not been made public at that time, so we knew the letters were written by the bomber.
Those who participate in any way in the murder of children may be targeted for attack. We will target sodomites, their organizations, and all those who push their agenda. We will target all facilities and personnel of the federal government.
You got three fairly distinct, different groups of people that were targets, and so, we began to wonder exactly who his targets were.
An FBI profiler analyzed the letters and the details of all three bombings. His conclusion? The bomber's true target was law enforcement. Birmingham, Alabama, 11 months after the third Atlanta bombing. Head nurse Emily Lyons arrived early for work at a women's health and abortion clinic. Off-duty police officer Robert Sanderson was working there as a security guard.
Hey, Sandy.
Hey, Emily.
How are you doing?
Good.
We met on the sidewalk in front of the clinic and we talked for a moment.
Just then, they spotted something that looked strangely out of place.
There was an overturned flower pot kind of buried a little bit, and that was not anything we would have ever had. So at that point, Sandy knew something was wrong.
Why don't you stand back?
Apparently sensing danger, Sanderson instructed Emily to back away. The explosion killed security guard Robert Sanderson instantly. Emily Lyons lost her left eye in the explosion. Dozens of masonry nails and screws tore through 90% of her body. Robert Sanderson left behind a wife and two sons. He had been a Birmingham police officer for 8 years. Task force members immediately believed the man they were hunting had achieved his objective, the murder of a law enforcement officer.
Just to play it safe.
But this time the authorities caught a break. Forensics would later reveal that the bomber had detonated this device by remote control, which meant one thing: the bomber was there.
That increased his chances of killing police officers, but it also directly increased his chances of being identified and caught.
Just after the explosion, a witness saw a man walking away from the scene. When the man removed a wig and discarded it, the witness became suspicious and began pursuing him on foot. The witness observed the suspicious man getting into a pickup truck, and before losing him, relayed the license plate number to police.
A small pickup truck.
The gray Nissan truck was traced to a man named Eric Rudolph who resided in western North Carolina. A warrant was issued for the arrest of the 31-year-old Rudolph.
FBI, search warrant! Come out with your hands up!
Investigators learned where Eric Rudolph lived. An FBI SWAT team raided Rudolph's trailer.
Last one's clear.
The trailer's air conditioner was still running and food was still on the table. Investigators believe they missed Eric Rudolph by minutes.
He's definitely been here.
He told friends and associates when he was a teenager that if he got in trouble with law enforcement, he would disappear into the mountains, and we feel that this is something that he was planning for a long time.
250 law enforcement officers converged on the Nantahala National Forest after Rudolph's truck was found abandoned nearby. But Eric Rudolph had vanished.
He grew up in the woods. He knew the terrain much better than we did. And there are places that we knew very well that we could have walked within 5 feet of him, and we would not have seen him.
Eric Rudolph would prove a formidable adversary. Investigators learned he'd been raised in a family that reportedly preached white separatism. The experienced outdoorsman and survivalist had also served in the U.S. Army. Deborah Rudolph was married to Eric's brother and had known Eric since he was a teenager.
I never really heard him talk about positive things. It was a lot of hateful things, a lot of negativity, about, authority and, our gun laws and government and politics.
The last known sighting of Eric Rudolph was made by a man who had known Rudolph for years. George Nordman was a local health food store owner who lived in a remote mountain cabin.
What the hell are you doing here? I need your help, man.
When Eric approached him about food stuff, George made the decision not to help Eric, and I believe became somewhat frightened of him.
2 nights later, Nordman's home warehouse was raided of several hundred pounds of food and his truck was stolen. It was believed Rudolph had made a return visit. Eric Rudolph has not been seen since July 1998.
Eric Rudolph was not a joiner. We found no evidence that he ever was a member of a militia. He was someone who had a streak of paranoia about him. He also liked being alone. So we don't believe that any group is helping him.
I think this is a game to him. He wanted to be in Special Forces. He wanted to be a mercenary. He is a one-man army, and he has got the authorities running around looking for him, spending millions of dollars.
The alleged victims of Eric Rudolph's bombs have moved on, but will never forget.
The end for me will be to find him, and it'll be a beginning of a whole nother book, but it'll be an end to that book. And I'll just sign and be like, it's a long time coming, long time coming.
As they struck out for their new life in Denver, Colorado, Deborah Loisel and her fiancé Jason Horsley were brimming with optimism about what this move would bring. Having been raised in rural areas, the college sweethearts were excited by the prospects of living in a big city for the first time. Deborah and Jason would eventually purchase a house in one of Denver's tree-lined inner city neighborhoods. They quickly fell in love with their new surroundings. All was well until one afternoon, a short time after they moved in, Deborah had a strange encounter with a neighbor.
Hello? What's going on?
What's wrong with your dog? Your dog's crazy.
I saw you harassing her.
Anybody harassing that dog?
Okay, listen, let's start over, all right? We're gonna be neighbors, so let's get along.
Deborah would later learn her angry neighbor was Malika Griffin, a woman who rented a room in the house next door.
When you can't talk to someone, it's kind of scary. It just made no sense that someone should start attacking us this way.
You crazy.
Jason Horsley and Deborah Loisel had realized every young couple's dream of buying their own home. But their optimism would soon dim with the discovery that their innocent purchase had caused them to cross paths with a rational neighbor, Malika Griffin. As police later discovered, Griffin was a ticking time bomb that could go off at any moment. Deborah and Jason were committed to making the best of a bad situation, happily pouring time and money into transforming a former crack house into their new home. They had actually put the incident with Malika Griffin behind them when, without any provocation, she became enraged again.
Hey, you need to move your truck.
What? I'm in a normal spot. There's no other parking places.
Although she didn't own a car, Griffin didn't want anyone parking in the public space in front of the house. Attempts at reasoning with her proved futile.
You can't live in fear in your own house. And it wasn't anything about the neighborhood. I mean, it was just this one woman, you know? I never felt threatened in my neighborhood.
Within days, Jason was confronted again.
What are you doing?
What's the problem?
You got your ladder on my property.
He had asked the landlady of the house if he could put the ladder there, and she said, yes, go ahead. Well, Malika didn't know, or she didn't want to know, that the lady had said, yeah, go ahead and put it there.
He couldn't see the evil. He didn't understand evil. His philosophy was, you get to know me, you won't hate me. And I tried to explain to him, some people don't want to know you.
Even though the anger behind the confrontations was escalating, Jason still believed he could win over Malika.
You know what, I'm gonna get some of my tools out of my truck.
When we got home, I said, don't go out there, don't go. And he said, no, I'm gonna clean my truck. So I went out back to water the flowers.
Jason, are you okay? What happened? Oh my God.
There was no doubt in Deborah's mind who was responsible.
He's been shot. He's been shot.
Oh
We
my
gotta
God.
get him.
A neighbor drove Jason to the hospital. The bullet had caused extensive internal injuries. While emergency room doctors struggled to save Jason's life, Deborah was questioned by police.
We just got word from the hospital. Jason didn't make it. I'm sorry.
Investigators later learned that while Deborah was being questioned, Malika Griffin carjacked an acquaintance several blocks from the murder scene.
Malika Griffin took the keys at gunpoint.
She then fled Denver in the victim's 1988 Oldsmobile. When Denver police searched the home of Malika Griffin, detectives were stunned by what they found.
We found books and paperwork that she had on how to make bombs and booby traps. We also found dummy hand grenades. The fuse was intact, but the cores had been removed.
The Anarchist Cookbook and the Poor Man's James Bond, manuals often found in the collections of terrorists, were among the literature recovered at the scene. Notebooks filled with Griffin's ramblings, advocating a coming race war and the killing of white people, were also discovered. Authorities now believe they had confirmation a racially motivated killer was on the loose.
She eluded our dragnet. The next time we found that car was approximately 2.5 days later in Iowa City, where the car had broken down. She befriended a man in Iowa City. He took her to a bus station and put her on a bus for Chicago.
After Chicago, Malika Griffin's trail grew cold. Since then, there have been no verifiable sightings.
You lose a kid, and you think about him all the time, every hour, every day.
I had future plans with Jason, you know. He was an extremely positive person, so I try to live my life the way he would. I'm not gonna feel sorry for myself, and I keep going on. He would never hurt anybody. And I don't believe I'll meet someone like him again.
On rare occasions, the world has been introduced to children who possess seemingly mysterious powers to excel in the worlds of art and science. Mozart began composing at the age of 5. Bobby Fischer competed with chess grandmasters when he was only 6. The incredible talents of such young geniuses have fascinated and puzzled scholars for centuries. What can possibly explain the phenomenon of child prodigies? Meet Jessica Constant of Queens, New York. She may look like a typical teenager, but at 14, she's already a college student. Jessica attends New York City Technical College, where she has studied since she was 12 years old.
Oh, I used to hate the first days because I would have to walk into class and everybody'd be staring at me. I was so scared, but now I'm used to it.
He's not gonna put that on the exam.
No, I think he is. I want to become a doctor, but I'm going to become a nurse before. Microbiology and child psychology are the only 2 courses I have left before I enter the nursing program. Then after I do 2 years of that, I get my associate's degree. Then I'm going to go on to medical school.
But Jessica's interests are not solely confined to academics. Jessica is also an accomplished cellist who attends the prestigious Juilliard School of Music. Along with her 2 older brothers, she makes up the Constant Trio. Jessica, Daniel, and Pierre have performed at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Remarkably, neither parent has any musical talent themselves, and they are awed by the artistry of their children.
Sometimes when I look at the kid playing, I wish I could be the one playing instead of having to listen.
I never thought I would have it in my own house. When I see the kids doing trios together, it's fantastic. It's kind of like a dream come true for me.
What mysterious set of circumstances contributes to a child having such extraordinary talents? David Henry Feldman, professor of child development at Tufts University, has studied the phenomenon of child prodigies.
What causes prodigies? Seems to be a combination of timing and talent and the right circumstances, all occurring during the same moment and sustaining itself for at least 10 years. So a prodigy is a child with unusual talent who appears in a society that has value for that talent.
Feldman notes that very few scientific studies have been performed relating to child prodigies. The knowledge base is extremely limited. Recently, a change has been observed in relation to the gender of the typical prodigy. However, that change may be a matter of media publicity.
There have historically been more boys than girls who have been called prodigies. In recent years, that has tended to reverse itself such that there are now pretty much an equal number of boy and girl prodigies in music. If you want to ask why such a change occurred, the answer is because society has taken an interest in finding girl prodigies.
As amazing as Jessica Constant is, once in a great while, a child prodigy will be born with even a rarer type of genius. One which expresses itself in many areas at once. At age 12, Albert Wong of Carrollton, Texas, is so smart he no longer attends school at all. Albert is already an accomplished violinist, teaches himself a wide variety of subjects from college textbooks, and is famous in the world of music as a concert pianist.
It's very rare when you find a musical prodigy. It's very rare when you find a child who is so talented at academic work that they need to move at such a rapid pace. The combination of those two things in one child is extremely rare. Each appears separately, infrequently. The combination appears almost never.
Albert Wong first displayed his mysterious musical talents when he was just 3 years old. Yet by the time he was 5, he had already won the grand prize in a Dallas piano competition for children up to 18. Wanting to nurture their only child's mystifying gift, Albert's parents took him shopping for a concert grand piano of his own.
To test the pianos, I believe I was playing a piece. It was about the third piano I was playing on, and then this gentleman just walked over.
Actually, himself is a professional musician, so he came over, introduced himself, and said actually very directly, say that Albert is very talented, and I know just the right teacher for him.
Albert began taking lessons at once. Eventually, Albert came under the tutelage of renowned former prodigy Earl Wild. New York's world-famous Carnegie Hall. At the conclusion of Earl Wild's performance celebrating his 85th birthday, 10-year-old Albert Wong was invited on stage to present his esteemed instructor with a bouquet.
This is Albert Wong. He's 10 years old and he's a pianist also.
Mr. Wild stunned everyone, especially Albert, by announcing that Albert would be playing an impromptu piece.
Hey, I had not touched the piano in 6 days. And I mean, I didn't even have a chance to warm my fingers.
Albert's performance of Hummel's Rondo in E-flat major brought down the house. That same year, still at age 10, Albert recorded his first CD. The work received rave reviews. One critic wrote, "An impressive debut for any musician. For a 10-year-old, it is astonishing." Professor Feldman has reviewed many theories attempting to explain talents like Albert's, ranging from the scientific to the supernatural.
The prodigy has always represented the unexplained. There are some who believe that the prodigy phenomenon should not be studied scientifically. In the absence of an explanation that meets rational and scientific criteria, we look for an explanation wherever we can find one. And reincarnation is attractive because it seems to account for some of the unbelievable and unexplainable parts of the prodigy.
Could Albert Wong's musical gifts possibly have begun in a previous life? The mere notion seems incredible, but Albert himself does not dismiss the possibility of his own existence in a past life.
I must have done something good in order to have deserved this. I'm hammering in your king from all sides, so there's no escape route.
As astounding as Albert's musical gifts were to his parents, they quickly learned he also possessed an extraordinary aptitude for math and science. His mother feared he'd get bored with a conventional education, so she gave up her career to homeschool Albert.
I used to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning to prepare myself to teach Albert fast enough. Now I don't have to do it because Albert is old enough to be independent. So my life is much easier now.
When Albert developed a strong interest in science, his mother searched for someone qualified to guide him to higher levels of learning.
Okay, now show me on your drawing the Y direction.
She found that person in a professor of physics at a local college.
That's X. So we have an inverted coordinate system in order to comply with the FN.
I think the biggest thing in terms of working with Albert is that you never have to say something twice. Whatever mistake he might make, he's made it the last time he's going to make it.
Of the 3 sciences, physics, chemistry, and biology, it's my own belief that physics is the most central of all the sciences, that every other science branches from physics. Biology is physics applied to living organisms, and chemistry is physics applied to chemical reactions, atoms, molecules, and macromolecules.
Albert's insatiable hunger for learning is not limited to music and science.
Well, I love to study. I love to read books. I love studying Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Every time I study it, I uncover new literary elements that are very tasty, delicious.
Where could the stirring talents of an Albert Wong come from?
Neither his mom or my family had any clue or any relatives in the families who had ever been a musician or even good in one instrument at all.
We know that there have been amazing prodigy cases through history. So we know that from time to time, such individuals appear. What we don't know is what the causes underlying the appearance of prodigies might be. Are they genetic? Are they evolutionary? Are they cultural? Are they historical? Are they something that's a combination of all of those things? Those are questions we don't know the answers to. Although we hope to understand the prodigy better in the 21st century, it remains a mystery.
There are few places left in America where doors are always unlocked and parents have no fear of letting their children run about freely. Warren, Massachusetts, population 4,800, is just such a place. The town's rural charm and quaint innocence seemed the perfect tonic to the Bish family. Urban violence had suddenly invaded their neighborhood in Detroit.
A young lady was followed one day after work as the facts unfolded, and she was abducted and was missing. And my husband and I thought, let's move to the country and find our peace and raise our children.
The Bishes flourished in Warren. 15 years after the move, the two older children went off to college, and the baby of the family, 16-year-old Molly, landed her first real job as a lifeguard at a nearby pond.
I could think of worse jobs.
Molly was very proud to be a lifeguard. She worked very hard for that, and she did get this position at the Warren Pond. It's a beautiful location, but it's surrounded by woods, and it is somewhat isolated.
On June 27, 2000, Maggie accompanied Molly to the pond, said goodbye to her daughter, and returned home. 3 hours later, Maggie received an alarming phone call.
Hello? No, she's not. She's at work.
And I got a phone call from the local police who said that there had been no lifeguard all day,
No, I dropped her off there myself this morning.
and that Molly's belongings were on the beach, but there had been no Molly.
Maggie rushed to the pond. She found her daughter's flip-flops, chair, and lunch sitting on the beach.
Molly?
There was no sign of Molly.
Molly is not here.
This one lady came up and she had a whistle on, and she said, there's been no lifeguard. I've been doing it all day.
Nobody here.
There's a lot of confusion. It was like a bad movie. Nobody knows what's going on.
Molly!
It's hard for me to describe that sinking, hollow feeling you have as divers are looking for your daughter, as dogs are combing the woods, and police officers are searching and interviewing people.
Nobody there.
And I almost immediately began to think that something really horrible happened.
There was no sign of any struggle at the scene. There were no clues left behind. Molly's chair, her lunch bag, her first aid kit, and the two-way police radio was just right there, intact, undisturbed. So we had no clues whatsoever.
Maggie Bish and her husband John had done everything possible to ensure their daughter Molly's safety. But apparently even that was not enough. Now the energy Maggie once poured into motherhood is being channeled into discovering Molly's fate. Maggie is convinced her daughter was abducted. In fact, she may have seen the man responsible. It happened the day before Molly disappeared. On June 26, 2000, Maggie accompanied Molly to the pond for her 7th day of work.
Today's the first day the kids are coming. Swimming lessons start? Yeah.
We pull up at the pond, and there's a vehicle parked in the parking lot right next to our car. There's a man sitting in there smoking. I somehow just feel uncomfortable. I look at this man. He doesn't nod or greet me. I just felt uneasy. I did not want to leave Molly with this man. Molly! In the white car.
Maggie escorted Molly all the way down to the beach and expected the stranger in the late model white car to be gone when she got back.
And lo and behold, I think I've been gone a reasonable time. But this man who is in this vehicle is still there. I'm very upset that he's still there. So I lock eyes with him. I am giving him a stare, trying, I guess, to maybe scare him away. But at the same time, he returns the stare and just boldly stares at me. He just cocky as all. He just squinted his eyes and he stared at me and just kept smoking, and he didn't seem to care.
Fearing for her daughter's safety, Maggie waited for the man to leave. The following day, Maggie once again went with her daughter to the swimming hole.
Have a good day, honey. Bye.
The suspicious man was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a truck unloading sand for the beach.
When I seen the sand truck, I realized that this was our local company. We know that they are businessmen in town, and I felt a relief. And that I could leave Molly, and it would be okay.
But Maggie never saw Molly again. The police investigation centered on the man Maggie saw in the white car. The sand truck driver saw a similar car in the pond parking lot just moments before Molly and Maggie arrived. On the other side of the pond is a cemetery. A worker there saw a similar white car later the same morning. A path leads from the graveyard to the swimming hole.
And it's my fear that this person parked at that path, went to the pond, and had taken Molly, took control of her, and took her out of the beach, through that path, into his car, and out of the cemetery, and down the road.
Despite setting up roadblocks, searching crime databases, and interviewing convicted sex offenders, police are unable to identify the man in the white car. A composite based on Maggie's description produced no reliable leads.
This is the picture that I chose of Molly for the website.
Desperate to generate any information, Maggie and her husband took action.
I couldn't believe how long it took us to find it.
We wanted to get an avenue to get Molly's picture out to as many people as we could. The computer. We came up with the idea an email chain would be a wonderful, wonderful explosive way to make more than one person, get this picture and keep sharing it with others.
And people need to know.
35,000 people were emailed pictures of Molly. A website devoted to finding her received thousands of hits. But 1 year passed, and the search for Molly had stalled. Maggie decided there was more she could do.
Maggie?
Miss Boylan.
She tracked down famed sketch artist Jean Boylan, who's worked on the Unabomber and Polly Klaas cases.
I did. It was very uneventful for me.
Jean agreed to meet Maggie at a local bed and breakfast with the hopes of producing a more accurate drawing of the man in the white car.
So what was it about this man that drew your attention to him?
When Maggie came in to work with me, what I tried to do, and what she was willing to do, was to talk about the positive aspects of her relationship with her daughter, which were plentiful.
When she finally could fit into my shoes, she'd have
It allows for that sense of relaxation, and then with that comes new information.
Typical 16-year-old, huh? What else can you remember about this man?
For 9 hours, the two women chatted as Jean slowly weaved a portrait.
of the mouth and
Finally, the drawing was complete.
looks just like him.
Although impressed with its uncanny accuracy, Maggie still felt something was missing.
it's amazing. The only thing that's missing is the cigarette and the way he held that cigarette the whole time.
Well, you know what? You've had a really long day. I don't want to put you through anything else today. Why don't I work on that tonight, and then I'll bring it down tomorrow morning, and you can let me know what you think. You want to do it that way?
Thank you.
And I had stayed up fairly late that night, using my own hand as a model, creating the image of the hand holding the cigarette, and then added that to the drawing. And I think that was just sort of the finishing touch that really brought everything into focus.
Good morning. Hi. How'd you sleep?
The next morning, Jean showed the updated drawing to Maggie.
Well, what do you think?
When I saw the completed picture with the cigarette, I thought, instant fear. I mean, it was him. You know, the eyes, it was this cockiness, it was this look.
The Bishes hope the new composite drawing of the suspect will lead them to Molly.
We want this person to know that we will never stop searching for her, and that we will never stop searching for him. I'm very angry. I'm very angry. And that anger is going to drive me on forever. I will not stop.
Molly's disappearance has transformed Maggie and her husband into staunch child safety advocates.
You know something. There's somebody out there who knows. And
Their fight has now expanded beyond Molly to help prevent any child from becoming a victim.
We're educating people, and we're giving them tools, and the kids are going to get smarter, and they're not going to get our children. Because you can lose your keys, you can lose your glasses, but how do you lose your children in America? Something is wrong, very wrong. And if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
Join me next time. Perhaps you hold the crucial clue that can help solve a mystery.